Yes, sir.
Please stand by. Football playoff semifinal at the 89th Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic opening news conferences featuring the head coaches of this year's participating teams. This news conference is featuring Ryan Day of 8th-seeded Ohio State. I am Scotty Rogers, Vice President of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, and I'll be your faceless moderator for today's media session. Each coach will appear separately, starting with Coach Day now, and Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian at noon Central. Coach Day will begin with an opening statement, then we'll go to questions. Please use the raise your hand function to indicate you want to ask the question. When you are called on for your question, please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Coach Day, please start us off with an opening statement.
Honored to be a part of the Cotton Bowl again. Just a tremendous bowl. And, I've said this many times that, the Cotton Bowl does a great job in their hospitality. Everybody there takes a lot of pride in the bowl, and it's a great setting. Have a great opponent. Have a tremendous amount of respect for Texas, Coach Sarkisian, his staff, the players. It's going to be a great environment, and we're very excited to play in the game.
All right, Coach, your first question is going to come from Michael Cohen. Michael, please come off mute and ask your question.
Hey, Ryan, Michael Cohen from Fox Sports. Back when you were making the decision to give up play calling, you had talked about how it would afford you some opportunities late in the season to be involved in the team in other areas. Now that time of the year has arrived, what are some areas that you think it's really benefited you and ways you've been able to get your hands on different parts of the program?
Well, I actually think, this time of year in the playoffs, I've had more time to actually be part of the football during the season, a little less. But now that, we've been in the playoffs, been able to step aside really, in terms of some of those other things and really get more involved with the football, which has been great. But certainly having Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly here allows me the opportunity to step away, be around the team, look at things that, and certainly with a wider lens. And that's been very important this season.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Kurt Bowles. Kurt, come off mute and ask your question.
Good morning, Ryan. Texas has struggled in the run game against Georgia twice and obviously Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. And y'all have obviously played great run defense all year. Does this look like an area you feel like you could exploit Texas?
I look at their offensive line, the coaches, their running backs, and I know that they're very, very talented. They're very good. So we're going to have to be at our best. I know that. And, they're always looking for balance. Again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Sark and the way that he designs his offenses, the way he calls the game. So our defensive staff is going to be working around the clock to put a great plan together. And then our players in terms of executing the plan. And that's what's most important as we head into this week and focusing on the process. We know when we get to this point in the playoffs, we're going to be playing against great players and great scheme. And we know that, this offense has a chance to be very, very explosive. So we got to get back to work this week and focus on the game plan, make sure that, we have a good mixture of the things that we've done in the past, mixed in with things that, are possible change-ups along the way based on how they attack us.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Dan Hope. Dan, come off mute and ask your question.
Ryan, you guys entered the CFP. A lot of people were doubting you. Now you guys are considered the front runner to win the national championship. How do you make sure that you guys continue to play with the same edge now that you're getting a lot of praise when you were coming in with maybe a lot of people doubting you?
Yeah, I mentioned it to the team the other day. Same guys in a room. as was there a month ago. And nothing that's happened in the past or really the noise that's around the building has anything to do with our preparation and our focus and our process. And that's what we've been diving into. And, we don't need any extra motivation to win this game. But one thing that does motivate our team is an opportunity for the team to play for another week together. And, this is a great group of guys that cares a lot about each other, have fun with each other. They love competing with each other. You can see the passion on the field when they get on the field. And I think the way that this format is and the way the playoffs are set now, it allows us an opportunity to grow as a team and to learn and to get better and to peak late in the season. And so I think we've learned a lot about our team. I think we've grown a lot as a team. And, we're banking on this to be our best football of the season. But these guys, they care a lot about each other. And we're just going to focus on the execution and making sure that we're preparing ourselves as best as we possibly can to go play this game against these guys on Friday night. And that's it. Nothing else matters. I've said this before. Nothing that's happened previously is going to have any effect on what's going on other than learning from our experiences. So we got to do a good job of starting from scratch again. And I think that's one of the things that our guys need to understand is that when you're playing in playoffs, it's almost like, seasons within themselves during that week. And that, you almost start from scratch, and you can go through and you say, okay, here's your opponent, here's your process, here are the walkthroughs, here are the meetings, here are the practices, here are all the things that come with preparing for a game like this to be at competitive excellence. And so we got to do a great job this late in the season of being disciplined to do a better job than Texas.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Tim May. Tim?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, man. The mute button was a weird place. Ryan, what is the biggest advancement that you've seen Will take from that new guy that walked in a year ago, basically, to being a leader? Like Justin Fry talked about how he stepped up as a leader when you've had those offensive line problems, et cetera, and just kind of, took them by the horns and said, this is not going to stop us and stuff. What just stands out most about him at this moment?
Well, I think even for somebody who's, experienced like he is and with his age, you still, you're at a different school, you're in a different program, you're in a different offense, and playing within the offense and being here now for the number of games that he's played, he's learned a lot about himself, but he's also learned a lot of the offense. He's grown into the offense. And I think he understands that his job is to be the number one leader on the team and on the field, and that the team is going to take on his personality. But in terms of the football on the field, I think he's done a great job off the field of grasping the concepts. He's put a lot of work in with Chip and with Billy. When the first couple words come out of a play, he can finish it for you. And that's when he knows exactly what's going on. He makes sure everybody's on the same page. When you're in the huddle, you can communicate a lot of information, situation, down, distance, score, all those things that come into play. And so, I think that's been important. I also think his footwork has improved. And I think when his footwork is on time and he's able to, time some things up in terms of his play actions and drop back passes, you're seeing him play, really good football, making good decisions and throwing the ball accurately.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Bill Rabinowitz. Bill, go ahead.
Hi, Ryan. Slow starts were kind of a problem for you during the regular season. Obviously not a problem in the playoff. You guys have gotten off to great starts both games. Has there been any extra point of emphasis on that? Is there anything you can point to explain why you guys have gotten off to the starts that you have and how important has that been, obviously?
We've always wanted to have fast starts. I mean, we all know that. But I do think that, we've talked about, early in games, you want to set the tone for the game, as an individual, but also as a team, as a unit. Both games we've started off with the ball and we've gone right down and scored. So execution fuels emotion, and that certainly has a big part of it. They go together, and we've executed well on those first couple drives, and that's had a big part of it. Defensive got some 3 and outs early in the game, and we've been able to jump on the last two opponents. But we also know that when we get into halftime, we got to go play in the second half, and we didn't do a great job of handling the middle 8 in this past game, and so we got to get that fixed. The issues are always there. You come out of a game like this, it's easy to say, well, everything was great. It wasn't great. there was a lot of things that we got to get better at if we're going to beat Texas. And so we got to make those adjustments coming out of the game. We got back here yesterday, got back on the film. It was a quick turnaround, but the guys did a great job getting in here, getting on the film. We kept our routine. And so, that's going to be the focus. But yeah, we always want to get fast starts, but we know it's going to be 4 quarters, and we got to come out of halftime. And I think that's the thing that, we talk about all the time. When you come into halftime, it's going to be one of 3 things: you're leading, it's tied, or you're losing. And then how do you, figure out how you're going to go adapt in the second half to go win the game?
Thank you.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Kenneth Berry. Kenneth, go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. Just in regards to, obviously, a lot's changed in a year. Obviously, Cotton Bowl appearance last year against Mizzou. Circumstances were much different. So just how have the young guys on this team, obviously Jeremiah Smith is pretty special, but how have the other young guys on this team followed the message of the seniors and kind of locked in terms of knowing like they're 1 game away from a national title, playing back in the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, well, we're 2 games away from a national title, and the only way that we're going to get to that final game is to win this game, and that's it. And I think yesterday we're able to talk a little bit about that, but once that's done, the Oregon game is over, and you got to move on from that, just like we've had to move on from other games in the past. And the only thing that matters is this game right here, playing against Texas. And again, our motivation right now is keeping this team together 1 more week. And then we'll go from there and figure out what's next after that. But everything else right now is a distraction. And like you said, the leaders are the ones that have to set the pace on this. And when you're a young 18, 19, 20-year-old person, it isn't always easy to stay locked in for this long of a time. And I think the team that can be disciplined enough to do that and continually prepare at a high level and not cut corners, not fray, not get distracted, not try to take shortcuts this time of year is going to give themselves the best chance to win. And so we've got to do the best job we possibly can at preparing for this game. And that's our focus, and that's our process right now that we're going to continue to dive into.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Stephen Hawkins. Go ahead.
Ryan, obviously talking about AT&T Stadium, how much does the familiarity with the place help? And I know there's a special place. It's a special place for Ohio State coming 10 years ago after the championship, but also for Will Howard, won a championship there in the Big 12 just 2 years ago. Just talk about Will's kind of being able to go back there and you guys going back there.
Yeah, and even for me with the TCU game, so there's a lot of history there, and I don't think that really has anything to do with anything, quite honestly. We got to go play on the field, but it's a great venue. We've had a lot of great games there, and I know we have great fans. In the Dallas area and throughout Texas. And so we know it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Next question is going to come from Cedric Golden. Cedric, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, you guys knocked off the Big Ten champions after a nail biter in October. And there are already calls for CFP reform, go figure. Was it an advantage for you guys to just keep playing and not have that long layoff? Or was this first round where the guys that had buys all lost, is that just a testament to how competitive college football's gotten?
I know we're all looking to see how this all shakes out and then going to evaluate it and figure out what's the best moving forward. I don't really know the answer to your question other than the fact that I did feel like, we've talked here in this room about, going back and watching some of the old NFL teams and winning that first wild card game and then getting some momentum into the playoffs and continuing to play. There's been evidence of that throughout, the NFL playoffs, because there really has never been a college football playoffs like this before. So you go back on, things that you can best compare to. And so I did feel like if we could get a good win in the first game, we could build momentum. Now it's our job to keep momentum. We have it right now, but that doesn't mean anything if we don't keep it. So, we'll continue with our process. These games are coming fast. They're not bowl games. They're just like game weeks. And it'll be the same thing there. We get in on Wednesday night, and then we play the game on Friday. So it'll be a quick turnaround, and we'll, again, focus on our process.
Coach, your next question will come from Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, Will looked maybe the most comfortable he's looked all season against Oregon. How do you, going into this game, capitalize on that confidence, that momentum? How do you really make that count for you?
We just keep it throwing it to you.
I know. It's great. I've reminded my family many times how amazing the game is week in and week out.
Well, I think, again, for Will, the more he plays at Ohio State in this offense with his teammates, he's getting more and more comfortable with everything. And you can say, well, he's played a lot of college football before, and he has. And you're seeing some of those things show up on the field. But just like anything else, you see guys who move from NFL team to NFL team, and sometimes it takes a while to get into the offense and understand it. It's like a language. And when you can understand it, like second nature, and that's when you can play your best football. So, again, what does that mean moving forward? Nothing. He's got to go do it from the first snap all the way to the end. And, if you start, thinking back on good games, bad games, and start to think that that's going to affect this next one, you're dead wrong. So he's got to be the best leader on the field. But he also has some confidence right now going into this game, which, again, he's got to continue to build on.
Coach, we have time for a couple more questions. One is from Hank South. Hank, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, apologize if this was already asked, but obviously you have history with Quinn Ewers. You guys recruited him out of the high school ranks. What drew you to him then, and what impresses you about his game now?
Well, he was one of the first 8th graders that I ever offered. He was in our camp here in the Woody, and I saw a young he was a boy at the time, really, who just had a tremendous release. And I remember grabbing him and grabbing his dad and said, man, you got a bright future ahead of you. I don't know if this is good or bad, but we're going to offer you a scholarship to Ohio State, even in 8th grade. And again, I don't know if that's legal or not, but we did. And then we went through the process, and boy, it was strange how it all shook out. He decided to come really in the middle of preseason camp for us. And so it was a little bit strange, but again, with college football, you look to adapt the best you can. And then CJ really had a great season that season, and he decided he really wanted to play. And boy, it was disappointing for us, but we certainly understood. And from afar, I've watched him, and he's got a lot of talent. He's a really good player. He comes from a great family, and he's had a great career at Texas. And a lot of people here still have good relationships with him and think the world of him.
Coach, your final question is going to come from Tim May. Go ahead, Tim.
Got in there again.
Double dip. I like it. Ryan, there was one play in particular. It was a second Jeremiah Smith touchdown, but Donovan Jackson got into just one of the battle royale with Jordan Burch. Just what has Donovan really brought to this team, above and beyond moving over that left tackle, playing selflessly and stuff. But it was just, it was cool to watch. And maybe put that into words for me, what he's meant.
Yeah. I would say, in terms of his leadership, he's been extraordinary to, we all know the story. This is a guy who came back, by the way, from Texas. So I'm going back to his home state to play in this game, which is great, exciting for him. But, he came back to play guard and be the top guy taken in the draft next year after a very long decision with he and his family. So then, after that Oregon game, to have to go move to tackle, it was a very selfless thing to do. But in the meantime, when he's embraced it, and this is a great message for our young players, he embraced the change for the team. He's now become a very, very good tackle, and he's increased his value exponentially, in my opinion, with the ability to play both positions. We'll need him to play that way in this game. They have tremendous pass rushers. They do a great job rushing the passer on the edge. They have some really good players. But he battled his tail off, and all those throws that Will has an opportunity to push down the field, it's because of the protection of the offensive line. So that goes into a lot of work. And sometimes I don't know if the offensive line gets credit for the protection, because in the pass game, it doesn't work if we don't have protection. It doesn't work if we don't run the routes properly. It doesn't work if the running back doesn't pick up his blitz. And then obviously the throw and catch. So a lot goes into the passing game, and the protection's a big part of that.
Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Full transcripts of both news conferences, along with video and audio files, will be distributed via email and posted online via the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic section of the College Football Playoff Media Portal. To gain access to the portal, send an email to licensing@catapultsports.com. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at Scottie, SCOTTIE, @cottonbowl.com. Thanks for joining us. Please stay safe and wish you safe travels during the remainder of this bowl season.
Okay, great. Coach, we'll do about 10 more minutes. Open it up with Bill Landis over to the right here.
Ryan, you said this time of year you have a little more time for the football of things. What does that look like for you, both like in game preparation and on game day?
Just feel like, it's just this time of year, and when you're in the playoffs, it's ball. It is. It's just like, putting the best plan you possibly can, for our guys. So, that's what we're in the middle of right now. Today's a huge game plan day for our staff. So, once we get done this, I got to dive back into that and all three phases, making sure it all fits. And that's the part I love. I mean, I certainly love the other parts of it, but I love this being able to jump into the football and be in the middle of all the decisions that are made schematically.
Dave, Bill.
After the first Oregon game, Ryan, you said that you guys wanted to re-engineer your defense. Whatever you guys did has worked so far for sure. What did that entail schematically?
Well, I think the first thing is, and it goes back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, like the way that things are designed now, you're able to grow as a team when you think about, how sometimes in the past, maybe that game could have cost us our whole season. And now we're able to make adjustments and learn and grow and build as the season's gone on. And so the first thing, it was clear to see in that game, we had to get lined up. We had to win the pre-snap battle. And that was the first thing. When you line up quickly, then you can communicate better. You can disguise better. And then you can recognize what you're dealing with across the line better. And, that was just one part of it, but that was a huge part. And then obviously there's the post-snap adjustments of just, certain techniques and how we're playing. But most importantly, it was winning that pre-snap battle and making sure we got a line. There are some schematic things certainly we did change. I won't get into those, but I mean, that was 80% of it.
Coach Day, you talked about Quinn Ewers. What makes him so special and a challenge for you guys to face?
I think his talent of throwing the ball is just off the chart. You just see him flick the wrist, and it's just very, very accurate. He's smart. Can anticipate. He's a competitor. He's been in big games before. Won big games. So one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So it's going to be a great challenge for our defense.
Coach, you've talked about the mission is to keep this team together. That's the goal. That's what this is doing. Can you tell us what it's like being around these guys right now with that, that being the driving force, keeping this going?
So it's just a great group who loves being around each other. And we're on the bus after the game. I'm on bus one with the defense with my family and some of the other coaches and their family. And in the back, you can just hear the defensive players talking about almost every play. They were talking about football the entire ride, talking about this play and that play, and giving each other heck for, you left me on this one, you didn't make this call, or whatever it was. They just love ball. They love playing together. They love the grind of it. They love walkthroughs. They love practice. They're in the building right now getting extra film work in, and they love playing with each other. And you can see it. You can see it the way that they're playing. They're playing right now with great passion. The physicality, the running, and the hitting that was going on the field was tremendous in that game, and it's got to continue.
You've referenced NFL a couple times now, how this is starting to resemble it, move on. Did that experience help you at all? I mean, what you experienced there in the league into what's happening right now, and can you just talk a little more about those similarities in terms of moving on?
Being in that league certainly, gives you a different perspective. Growing up in New England and watching the Patriots and, all those runs that they made, just being around that, obviously being a college coach, you're in the middle of college, but just always watching it and seeing it and watching how those teams developed as the season went on and growing from that. And, knowing that, some of those teams over the years, like I think about the Giants that one year, I think it was 08 or something, it was 08. Yeah. I mean, they were struggling late in the season, and Coughlin was in a bad way, and but they found a way to continue to win, and then they go at the first round, they got some momentum, and then it just And so, you use those as examples because, there isn't a history of playoffs in college. So, you try to, give the guys some different, reference points on what it could look like or what needs to happen late in the season, because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to one game. It comes down to a series of games where you got to be playing your best football. And I think that's probably the biggest difference that I see is we talked about this in the preseason, like fundamentals, techniques, all those things are going to be critical. And then like what you're running late in the season is going to be important, because in the past it was usually a game or two where you had a month to prepare and you could kind of just like put together one real good game plan and one game together and boom, you threw it on the field and it could work. This doesn't work that way. It has to be a series of games that come real fast. And so I think that's different in how we have to approach it.
Advantage for you guys at this moment? I mean, it seems like when you've got the momentum, you want to keep momentum.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what momentum's all about. You got to keep it. And if you don't have it, you got to go get it. But, we've been, looking at this thing from the beginning on how do we get to this point and play our best football and be able to sustain it throughout the whole month and into January. So, again, this is all about Texas right now. We got to go do it and put it on the field. But I think our guys are in the rhythm of that. We got to keep our game week going and then focus on our process. That's it.
Real quick. Jaden Field makes the 46-yarder.
Yeah.
How big was that? Was that a test both for him and for you guys? You could have gone for it there. Typically, maybe you would.
Yep.
You're still up 14-0 if he misses it, but you've learned something about him if he misses it. Instead, maybe you learned something that he made it.
Yeah. Everything you said is exactly right. We could have gone for it there. I felt like, I think it was a 46-yarder, and it goes right down the middle. And I think that's going to build confidence for him going into these last two games. And we know we can do it. He got into a bad way in that game, and so we want to pull him out of it. And we did have a little bit of that kicking competition going into the week before, and he did a nice job. He responded, and I think everybody, when we put somebody in the game, we all believe that you can do it. And we made sure we told them that. Like, we put you in the game, it's because we believe you can do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't put you in the game. Our team believed that he could make the kicks. He did, and did a nice job. Did his job, and that's it. Everyone's got to do their job. Long snapper's got to do his job. Holder's got to do his job. The right wing's got to block for him, and then he's got to make the kick. That's his job, and he understands that. And but good to see him put two through, and we're going to need him in this game as well, because it's going to come down to a couple plays like it normally does.
Cameron T. Robinson. Ryan, obviously, Coach at Ohio State, there's a sense of immediate, like people want immediate results. I imagine this is the type of defense you wanted to see when you hired Jim back in 2022. But just the journey that this defense has been on from that year to now, what's that like to see as Jim is finally kind of putting together what he really wanted to do?
Yeah, and I think it's a staff that's grown, but it's also a bunch of players who have grown and stuck together and played a lot of football now. So the combination of the scheme and the guys, understanding how the scheme is adapted over time. But then when you look at the number of starts on that defense, it's adding up. And I think that is probably one of the most important things. You look at like the team in 19, our defense in 19, those linebackers, those guys were veteran. They'd played a lot of football before. And I think that makes a big difference, because you might have some talent, but when you have guys who have played a lot of football, you can adjust quickly. You can make, put game plans together where there's reference points. Guys recognize plays. Like, I thought we did a great job, like on that trick play. Like, we recognized that thing and snuff it out quick. Guys saw that. Tyleek was on that. Mitchell Melton recognized it, ran to it. Kenyatta Jackson did a nice job. I mean, those are the types of plays that when you have older guys who have seen things before, they react quickly to it. And even in the game, there was a couple plays on fourth down where they lined up in funky formations on fourth and short, where it looked to me like they were gonna try something there. We lined up pretty good the first time, and then got in at halftime and recognized that we probably were susceptible. They lined up in it again. We had made the correction, and then they shifted back out of it and punted it. And that was a big stop for us, because we knew in this game we couldn't give them anything in those areas, because that's what they had done this year. They had found those moments in the game to turn the game by getting a first down. The reason I say that is, when you have veteran guys like that, you can quickly show them the iPad, get it fixed, and they put it on the field fast. And those things add up when you have veteran players. And I do think that our defensive staff has done an excellent job. They're going to have to continue to put a good game plan together. But ultimately, it comes down to the guys on the field, and I just can't say that enough. Again, sometimes as coaches, we get a lot of the attention, but these players are the ones playing, and so ultimately, I think that's been the difference this year.
Ryan, you were talking about Quinn. What was his year here like? Obviously, coming in when he did, wasn't here that long, was down the depth chart. I think he only played like 3 snaps. But from your perspective, how did he deal with that? How did he grow maybe as a player here? What was that season?
It was very unique, and he came in. It wasn't midway through preseason camp, but it was close. So he didn't have the normal experience of adjusting and getting orientated with the team and his class and those types of things. So it was a challenge, but the guys embraced him, and they give a lot of credit to our guys, put their arm around them. And then as the season went on, he did everything he could. We did a little extra work for him at the end of practice to get him up to speed, but he was already behind a decent amount just because of how late he came in. But he always had a great attitude. You could see the talent. And we certainly, didn't want to see him leave, but we knew he was going to be a special player.
Ryan, with the way that this defensive line is playing for you guys, what does that allow the linebackers in the secondary, particularly like Denzel and Davison, who struggled in that first matchup against Florida? It didn't even seem like they had to strain the way the defensive line was pressuring Dylan. What does that give you guys moving forward?
Yeah, well, we talk about the coverage and rush working together, and although we had 8 sacks in the game, there was several of those that probably should have been credited to the secondary. You can tell that the first read was taken away. Well, that this is a very good quarterback, and so I think there was some disguise in there that was well executed. There was a couple times they took shots down the field, and Davison and Denzel were on top of both of those, which was huge because those are game-changing plays. And, we knew that at some point they were going to try us at corner, and the guys did a great job in those spots, and all that stuff adds up. And then when you find yourself up a couple scores and it turns into a passing game, now we can pressure, put pressure on the quarterback. I thought we did a good job of disrupting some of the passes by getting our hands on at least 3 or 4 of them up front. And we were close to a bunch of interceptions too. So we're getting our hands on balls. We were active, but it's everybody's coverage and rush working together. But to your point, when the defensive line can, stop the run the way that they did with the linebackers as well, safeties were a part of that as well. I guess it's everybody, but everyone's got to do their job, and the defensive line certainly did their job in this game.
When you talk about enjoying these wins for 24 hours, or at least the trip home, did you actually do that on Wednesday, or did you have Texas film up, or what did you do on the flight home?
Yeah, I took the first 2 hours of the flight and went through the film, made a bunch of notes so that, when we got in here the next day, we knew, ended up getting home at about 5. So it was a quick turnaround, but wanted to get all that out of the way. So when we got in here, we could get going. But after those 2 hours, jumped on Texas and, dove right into it, kind of run on adrenaline a little bit, didn't really sleep on the flight. A lot of people were knocked out. I wasn't. I was grinding on that film and trying to figure out, how to get a head start so that when, because sometimes your best thoughts are when the head hits the pillow that night or when you wake up in the morning fresh. And so sometimes I just like to get that picture in my mind of, okay, here's a red zone, here's a third down, here's how they're trying to attack you. And then you just, right before you go to bed, you just write something down. And when you wake up fresh in the morning, it's amazing how some things come to you. So I tried to get my eyes on it and then slept for a few hours and got back in here.
Ryan, you've had over your time here, probably half a dozen quarterbacks leave, but with Quinn, this will be the first time you've actually played one in a matchup or in a game. What do you think that'll be like, just from game planning, having familiarity, from getting to play him in action? Just what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's in a way different place than he was when he first was here, and but got a lot of respect for him, and so he's going to do everything he can to win the game. We're going to do everything we can to win the game, and yeah, I don't know, but I guess it will be the first time that happened. But he's a tremendous competitor, and we know it's going to be a big challenge for us.
You said earlier that you were disappointed what were the conversations like when you'd only been here 4 months? He came early. Like, was there like a hard sell to stay? Like, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course we want him to stay, but also I think he saw what CJ did, and he wanted to play right away, and that was that's the competitor in him. And we wanted him to stay, but we understood, and that's kind of the way things work nowadays. And obviously he's had a great career, and that's just, unfortunately the way things work now. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's good for guys when they have an opportunity to go different places to play, and it's the game nowadays. And so there's only typically one quarterback who's going to play unless there's an injury or something that happens. But again, he's had a great career, and nothing but praise for him as a person.
Scenario probably could play out in the future because the way guys leave, I imagine this will not be the first time you play somebody.
Yeah, I think you're going to see it more and more.
That was only the second game for the new version of the offensive line. What did you see from that group as they continue to build game to game here?
I thought they competed. Like anything, you come out of the game and there's things you want to clean up. But I love the attitude. I love the effort. I love the intensity. You see us score that touchdown in the second half, and I mean all five guys, the tight ends, Brandon Ennis. I mean, they're just pumping their fists and getting in the end zone and getting a piece of Travion after we run it in, and that's the passion that we need, and it starts with the offensive line.
Just a few more. Andrew from Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you talked a lot about peaking at the right time, but what does that look like in application? What does that look like September, October? Obviously, keeping guys fresh, keeping guys healthy is a big part of that, but how do you make sure that, you're still winning your games in September and October, but knowing you still have to play our best football at the end of the year?
Yeah, well, the focus has to be on your fundamentals, your technique, building a foundation as the season goes on. Because if you have an identity, then it certainly allows you to have counters off your identity. When you don't have an identity, you're a team running a bunch of defenses or an offense running a bunch of plays, and that's never good. So you got to have something to fall back on. You got to have a foundation that's built throughout the season. And, if you compromise that to win a game along the way, you can find yourself in a bad way late in the season. And so we certainly didn't want to do that. We had a plan for that. We stayed to it. But that doesn't matter if we don't go do it this week, and that's it. And our guys understand that, but still, it's just, we have to make sure we stay focused because, just a couple weeks ago, I don't think too many people in the country believed in this team. And now, the sentiment's changing, and that can't affect how we go to work every day. It has nothing to do with how we prepare in this game. We've got to stay focused on our process and continue to do what we've been doing the last couple of weeks.
Talked in the past and mentioned it today too about this being about the players. You see the video from the locker room, Brandon. I think it was Brandon celebrating with you. What has it meant to you that even though you don't want to take credit, these players are rallying around you a bit?
Well, I just think, in moments like that, I just believe, it's you spread the praise around. It's about the coaches, it's about our staff, it's about the players, and that's it. And I take responsibility for when we come up short, but we win games. It's about the team. We're all in this thing together, and it's about the players. And I think we have learned a lot. I don't like to go back, but you learn a lot about yourself when you go through tough times, and that was a message to our players that in life things aren't always going to go the way you want them to, and sometimes they come at you when you least expect it, but it's about how you respond that you're ultimately defined. And so whether it's in life as a dad, as a husband, in business or whatever it is in the game of football, it's about how you respond. And I think, our guys have recognized how we've responded as a team and individually. And I think they're rallying around that. But again, what does that mean for this game? Nothing. But to answer your question, I think that, we're all rallying around each other and how we've responded.
Ryan, you're returning to the scene of your biggest interim head coaching victory there at AT&T. It's a bit of a full circle thing. What did you think back then, and how do you just, process where you are now and how crazy this whole journey's been since that moment, which at the time probably felt very big to you?
Well, I know, I didn't really think of it all that much. And I know a couple of you guys asked about the Rose Bowl and how it kind of started there. And while I was in the locker room, I actually, when I grabbed my hat and I grabbed the whistle, I kind of thought about the same thing, like, how things have kind of come full circle. And then to go back into to this stadium, I think about that, that lateral that went across the field, they threw a flag on. Like, if that didn't happen, would I be standing right here? I have no idea. But that's the game of football, and it's still a game. And that's what you have to remember. Like, these are 18, 19, 20 some odd, year old players playing the game of football. And that's it. And, sometimes the margin of error can be tiny. That's what it is. And, we have that quote in here, the man in the arena, and that's part of how it works. And so, yeah, it'll be a great environment. And, as time goes on, you have more experiences in these different arenas, and it has nothing to do at all with what goes on in the game. We all took a tough loss there last year. So, I mean, there's good and there's bad. And again, that's just a reminder that, this is about this team, this is about this week, and this is about this game and nothing else.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Yep.